most commentators would agree that the wines that are being made today are a little different to the wines that were being made 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Lots of people have speculated on whether today's wines are better, or some people have suggested that they're better young, or will they age? We can't answer that question. We can guess, but to be honest, if the wine changes, then we can't say definitively that these wines will age in exactly the same way as the wines of 20 or 30 years ago. Obviously, lots of people have opinions. It's a very complicated area. But we can be sure, the only thing we can say with surety is that if you change the wines, then you will change the way that they will develop and age. But we can't say whether that's for better or for worse. The same issue is to do with closures. I've been involved in following the debates on wine bottle closures, and particularly in the debates about whether screw caps with a tin sarin lining, which the screw caps used in Australia and New Zealand, are suitable for aging of fine wines. In Australia, this is a very polarised debate. And I've heard people in Bordeaux talking about whether first growths should be aged under screw caps or not. The only thing we can say for sure is that if you do that, the wines will age differently. It's like changing the styles of the wines. The wines will age differently, and we won't know for sure. We can guess, but we won't know for sure. For 50 years, I'm sure Michel's got an opinion on this, which I'm sure he will share with us. But from a scientific point of view, I can say, that if you change the parameters of the way that the wines are, the composition of the wines, or the oxygen transmission through the closure, then you will change the way that the wines develop. And a big problem, I think, in aging wines generally has been that cork is a variable closure, and so when you open at 20 years a case of Bordeaux, all the bottles are a little bit different. So, but then to rush to an alternative solution brings with it a degree of risk. But you've got to make an educated guess and say, I think that with all these factors and lots of unknowns that we don't know, this is the way I think it will go, and this is the gamble we will take. And I think this is a changing style of Bordeaux. Bordeaux, generally speaking, I think the selection is better. The wines are a little bit riper, which often is a good thing. It seems that the wines that are now being made today are a better quality than the wines that were made in the past. But they will be different, and so their aging trajectory will be different, and this is something we'll have to monitor.
Allez, Roland, Peter, et puis Michel.
There is one example that worries me a lot, and that are the wines of Burgundy. I think everybody here knows that since '96 there are a lot of oxidized bottles in Burgundy, and I think that already shows that the change of the wines there, and they are probably still looking for what exactly does it, but it worries me a lot, and it shows that the change in the wines also has an impact on how they age, and the risk of opening a bottle of Burgundy since '96 is enormous. And that's one thing that worries me a lot in this discussion.
Peter?
If it comes to closures, I think we shouldn't discuss this here now, but I think that consumers tend to drink wine earlier and earlier on, so they get a bottle and they think it's always immediately to be drunk. But that's very true for my country, which is basically a white wine producing country, so I would estimate 95%, if not more, of the wines are drunk within 1 year. It doesn't say anything about the aging potential, because a Veltliner or a Riesling would age gracefully, but people are not used to drink the wines aged. I'm speaking about the big crowd, not the connoisseurs. And I feel with the tremendous evolution of the quality here in Bordeaux over the last 10-20 years, well, I feel that even, as you said, the wines are a little bit riper, but they are also more accessible if young. So I'm not so sure whether the way they are made is so important. Of course, there's a new technique, and it's very good, and everything is more healthy and clean. But at the end of the day, I would say, why shouldn't these new style wines from Bordeaux, why shouldn't they age as well, if not better than the ones which were made under, well, said more rustic conditions years ago? So I have no doubt in this so far. There's no indication for it for me.
Michel?
Oui, alors, Jamie a parfaitement raison pour ce qui est des questions de bouchon, de bouchage et de l'influence.
Mais la réponse c'est diable, on a compris.
Mais en revanche, il faut quand même pas exagérer, on a plus de bons vins qu'avant. Il n'y a pas eu de le cas des Bourgognes blancs est un peu particulier, mais pour la plupart des vins, il n'y a pas eu dans les 30 dernières années de changement profond de vinification technique dans l'élaboration des vins. Et dans l'analyse des vins, il n'y a pas de changement profond en dehors du fait que les vins qu'on fait aujourd'hui sont mieux constitués et en tanin et en alcool, etc. Tous les éléments scientifiquement mesurables montrent que les vins qu'on fait aujourd'hui sont meilleurs que les vins qu'on faisait autrefois. Bon. Moi, je suis assez vieux pour avoir entendu un certain nombre d'idiots dans les années 80 dire que les vins de la nouvelle œnologie bordelaise, celle du professeur Pénaud et d'acidité basse, ne vieilliraient pas, que tous les terroirs se ressemblaient. On disait des vins que faisait Émile Pénaud, la même chose qu'on a attribué à Michel Roland, etc., etc., à faire en sorte qu'il n'y ait plus de terroir, plus un. Bon. Or, aujourd'hui, de ces années 60, des vins qui ont 40 ans d'âge, ceux qui ont le mieux vieilli, ce sont ces vins-là. Bon. Donc, je n'ai aucune crainte quant au vieillissement de nos grands vins. Un seul point intriguant, effectivement, dans l'histoire des grands vins français, c'est ce caractère oxydatif compris un très grand nombre de Bourgognes dans les années 80 et 90.
Blanc, rouge.
Blanc. Uniquement ce phénomène concernant les blancs, et encore pas tous, puisque dans les mêmes millésimes, vous trouvez des vins qui, à bout de 20 ans, sont aussi magnifiques qu'avant. Bon. Donc là, c'est très complexe, il y a plein de raisons, on ne peut pas en parler ici. Hein. C'est plutôt une question d'agriculture ou de raisin que de technique de vinification proprement dite. C'est là qu'il faut faire très attention. Il faut que le raisin lui-même, c'est-à-dire à la base, ait les mêmes qualités, les mêmes équilibres si on veut faire des vins de même qualité. Mais il n'y a pas eu de modification, sinon qu'on fait mieux tout, on discipline mieux tout, mais il n'y a pas de changement. Hein. La vinification bordelaise, c'est la même.
C'est optimisé.
Hein. Bon, elle est optimisée.
Troisième question, histoire de faire semblant d'avoir un débat quand même, un vrai. Qui a une troisième question? Allez.